Welcome to another episode of Simon Pascal Says. I'm Paul Simon, and I've got Dustin Pascal here with lawyers with the law firm of Simon Pascal PLLC here in Frisco, Texas. Today we're going to talk about something that I think is pretty basic when it comes to employment law, and that's overtime. However, even though I would consider this something that's basic, it's something that we see a lot of companies doing wrong. We see a lot of lawsuits as a result of companies not complying with overtime laws. So Dustin, kind of just give us an overview real quick of what is the laws regarding overtime pay as it relates to Texas employees and federal law.
Yeah, so, end of the day, federal law, Texas law are aligned when it comes to overtime. They're the same. And what that law says is that anytime you've got an employee who works more than 40 hours in a work week, then that employee is entitled to time and 1/2 of their regular rate of pay. Now we're talking about non-exempt employees. What that means is they are not exempt from the overtime laws. So that sounds kind of circular, but if you think about it, there's some exempt employees, there's non-exempt employees. That's a video for another day, but we're talking about non-exempt employees. And for non-exempt employees, any work they perform in excess of 40 hours in a work week, they must be paid time and 1/2 their regular rate of pay for those hours. Work week can be defined by the employer any way you want. It can start on a Saturday and end the following Sunday, or start on a Monday and end the following Sunday. However you want to do it, or Saturday to Friday, I guess would be the first way. But that's how the work week is defined, and that's how you pay when it comes to overtime.
Yeah, and you're talking, typically we're dealing with, when we say non-exempt employees, they're typically paid an hourly wage. One of the areas where we get into issue with calculating what that overtime rate is our hourly employees that get commissions or get a quarterly bonus or get their hourly rate may change if they have a shift differential. What do we do in those situations to ensure that we're actually paying the regular rate, the time and 1/2 for the regular rate?
Yeah, it's a bunch of math and a bunch of admin work at the end of the day, which is why we need good accountants, good bookkeepers, good CPAs, things like that. But your shift differential ones are easy. If you've got somebody that makes one hourly rate for their regular work and then this hour, a separate hourly rate for the hours they work at a different shift, you really just kind of average those two together, and that gives you their kind of ongoing, or their regular rate of pay for figuring out overtime. But when you've got these employees that may get a bonus or a commission or something along those lines, you have to kind of go back and recalculate to get their true hourly rate. You may have an employee that worked 50 hours in a week, and then 2 weeks later they get their commission for that week. So what you've got to do is, you've already paid them their 40 hours of straight time for that week. You've already paid them 10 hours at time and 1/2 of their hourly rate. But now when you throw that commission in for that week, you've got to go add that in, figure out what their true rate is, taking that into account, and now give them the differential between what you previously paid them for overtime and what the time and 1/2 of the true hourly rate is. That sounds super convoluted and super confusing. It's easier with a dry erase board and some math, but just know you've got to go back and figure that out.
Yeah, and the last thing we'll touch on here is, Dustin shared kind of what the laws are related to Texas employees, federal law. As we have a much more remote workforce, we really need to examine what state our employees reside and work in. So, and it doesn't matter if you have an employment document that says Texas law applies, you're a Texas employee. If your worker, your employee is living in California, California trumps that agreement. California says our laws apply. California overtime laws are completely different than state and federal. They're going to have a time and 1/2 requirement if you work more than 8 hours in a day. They're going to have double time if you work more than 12 hours in a day. And then they're going to have different requirements based on the amount that you work in a week and the amount that you work in 2-week period. So you really need to look and figure out, where is my employee residing, working, and does that state's overtime laws differ from where our home base is, and make sure that we're in compliance all around there. So that's today's tip on overtime laws. Tune in next time for another episode of Simon Pascal Says.